So we have seen the cultural dimension of international business. We have discussed international strategy and marketing, and now we know where we want to go and how we want to market our products or services. I put my lawyer's jacket to tell you a little bit about international law and international contracts. In fact, legislation is quite part of the culture of a country. And it's also quite important for the marketing in a country, because you have to take into consideration all the rules that apply in a country. You have to indeed follow these rules, and as well as, even if you make an agreement, you have to make sure that your agreement will be recognized by law in this country. So let's address first maybe the rules, and then we will discuss contracts. Rules are mostly the rules of a country. Countries make the rules on their territory, and that's most of what the legal system is done, and you have indeed to ask the help of a local lawyer when you go in the country. Now, in addition to that, you have some groups of countries who harmonize their rules. That's the case of Europe. The European Union has harmonized the rules of 28 countries, but to some extent only. And finally, you even have international rules made by international organizations. Think of the World Trade Organization, for instance, and have a look at what some international associations also do to help people to go across their borders and understand a little bit how things work in another country. This is to be read in the course, and if you please check the website I give you, you will understand there can already be a lot of help. The second part of this chapter on legislation is about contracts. Contracts is in most of the countries and most of the time left by authorities to private parties to agree. So people or companies agree contracts and make agreements between themselves. And they are free to do so, or they are at least free in the limits of the legislation. Let's be cautious, but there is kind of a principle that you can agree something. Now the point is, how can you agree something, and how do you make sure that somebody will do what was agreed? How to agree? We can shake hands, we can say something, and maybe it works. Now, if you consider the complexity of the world today, most of the people will make it in written form. And this is my advice. Look for a written contract if you make an agreement with whoever, a partner in a country, with a distributor, with a customer. Everything is better written. How can you make sure this will be, what we call the obligation, will be executed? Well, most of the time you have, of course, to find a good partner, and information about that is key. On the other hand, if things go wrong, you have to think of how to deal with a dispute. And for dispute, you can also plan to have an arbitrator or go to a judge, although I know some cultures don't like that. So you have to look for the best solution according to the parties. And cultures are still there behind, and you have to take into consideration what can be agreed. But however, in a contract, there are some classical, very classical items that all come back in each contract. And you have a list in the course. I don't go into all of these, but realize that a contract creates obligation for two parties, to persons, to companies, these companies have to be capable to do what they say. And if they are not, there will be a responsibility, or better said, even a liability if things go wrong. And that's what makes, indeed, a lot of meaning in law. It creates obligation. Now, to help people to define their obligations, there are a lot of help available from different associations, and I can only advise you to look at these associations and make sure that you can indeed have something that's not only clear, but will also be executed, and get the help of these associations maybe to have a clear wording.